Hello. Hi. Today's topic is on cultural dissonance within cultural communication, language. It's one of my things. It's one of the things that I've been teaching on for over 2 decades. And since I've come to the age where you share more, here I am sharing with you. The picture in the background I created when I was at home with my babies at age 29. I'm now 61 years old. All right, so I'm a professor full-time at one university and part-time at a college. And I just love teaching and supporting and learning. I shall learn until the day I pass away. So here we go. Cultural dissonance within cultural communication of language. So I'm going to give some definitions, and if you're interested, I can send you the full video. All right, so this is just a trailer, so to speak. So cultural dissonance is a sense of discord, disharmony, confusion, and conflict experienced by us people in the midst of change in their cultural environment. So that's the definition of cultural dissonance. Now, within cultural communication, oh my goodness, I speak 4 languages, 2 I'm rusty on, so I'm not totally fluent, and 2 I'm fluent in. And so my brain, the way it works, being within the field of brain sciences, which I'm not going to belabor that point, my brain has to click into different languages as I speak, or as I tell jokes or don't tell the right jokes. And I get in trouble with my loved ones who are not family, but blood family. Not blood family, sorry, I apologize. Not blood family, but actually adopted family, soul family. I get in trouble all the time because of that. And because I love, love, love easily and always, I don't want to hurt anyone, but sometimes the misunderstanding comes. So within cultural communication, for example, in some cultures that I've lived in, you don't look somebody straight in the eye because that's too intense. That's too, aggressive. You kind of look down when you talk, or you bow down when you talk, and so it's in courtesy to your elders. In other cultures, you don't do that. It's a little bit strange, right? So that's an example. Body language is included in what? Spoken language. And actually, in my field of criminal justice, body language says more than spoken language. So that's the faux pas we make within cultural communication, language. And language is really critically important to the brain's understanding of how to perceive and perceive other things, perceive things around you. And so that's where language comes in, where there's cultural dissonance within cultural language, right? Okay, and again, remember that we human beings are 85% actually alike. Healthy, if you're healthy, 85% alike, right? People forget that. They say we're all different. We're not. We're not. But 15% of us comes more from our cultural nuances within environmental influences, and that we hold on proudly and patriotically to our identity. All right, so we start with that. So I'm going to give you, let's see, 2 examples of myself when I was younger. So here I am growing up in my native country of Ghana, right? And I come away to the United States of America. I was supposed to stay just for university and go back home. So I come away to the United States of America, wanting to go back home, totally connected with back home, loving my family back home, being the oldest girl, just missing them desperately. And I was in Johns Hopkins University, and I was emancipated. I was totally independent. So I had to work full-time, 3 jobs, cut and paste it together to make enough money as a full-time job all the time until years later after law school. And even when I later on went to grad school to get my mental health degree. So I was busy, my mind was busy, and I was young, and it was frightening. When I look back, I realized that in many of the situations I was homeless. I didn't know I was homeless. Now, by the definition of homeless, I was, because I slept on friends' couches, gave them a little bit of money, and these friends are still my best friends today. All right. So going back, here I was plucked in Johns Hopkins University, excited, happy, given my personality, working full time on the swim team, had a boyfriend who was going to later become my husband, so like a fiance, very busy. The one thing I guarded because of my health and my background and knowing this, because my parents worked for the National Health Service in Britain in the early 50s, where they met and married around 1956, 57. So they brought us up knowing about health. I guarded my 8 hours of sleep. I always guarded my 8 hours of sleep. I love sleep. And then I'd wake up, say, 8 hours later at 6 a.m. to start the day and to just make the best of the day, because we know life is short. Don't we know that? We really do know that. So make the best of each day. I'm still like that. That's just engraved within my soul design. So I was happy. I was happy daily. And yet I couldn't understand my professors at all. And no one knew that. So there are two things I'll describe. One, the American English at the time when I was just being introduced to it for the first time at age 19 was really rapid, really fast. I couldn't understand anything they were saying. They didn't know that, and my friends didn't know that. And I had fantastic friends who caught on to this sooner than I did. When they looked at my notes, they saw chicken scratch and wondering why chicken scratch? What's going on here? And I explained that I had to write so fast and I couldn't even read my chicken scratch. I didn't even understand it. So I need Ubuntu, collaborative, as I give Ubuntu, collaborative, for them to lend me their notes. And they caught on to that before I did. They lent me the notes quickly. They wanted to help me. See how important friends are and support is, back and forth, right? Symbiotic, collaborative, interdependent culture. Oh my goodness, they helped me so much. Okay, that's one example. Another example is when I first landed at Johns Hopkins. I came a little bit late and I did not understand what the dean was telling me or the advisor. I didn't know that. They didn't know that. I didn't understand because it's a blind spot. And you don't know your blind spots, right? Because if you did, you could plug in. You could have the choice to plug in. I didn't know my blind spots. They didn't know I had blind spots. Of what? For example, they asked me which courses I'd like to take. And I told them which I'd like to take, not knowing that the next semester, the courses would flip, would change. You choose again. I had no idea. That's not the culture I came from. I thought I'd stay with those courses throughout. So one example, and they didn't know, I didn't know. So one example of that is back home, I'd watched one of the few movies that were permitted or series that were permitted on TV because TV was censored at that time. And it was Hawaii Five-0. And I fell in love with Hawaii Five-0. I wanted to be a detective with a law degree. I wanted to do investigations. At first, I was pre-med, and I was interested in also aeronautic engineering, but I really disliked one part of the science, chemistry. Now, don't assume, because then we didn't have the laboratories. We had to learn everything from the chalkboard. So I switched to law, because what else do? You want to do pre-med or engineering, and you can't do that because you hate one of the topics. You switch to what? Law, really? So that's funny. That's a cultural nuance, by the way. So I switched to law. And so I thought, Hawaii Five was my thing. I'll be the lawyer on the team, a detective, do investigations. And so there's this course called Detectives and Their Chronicles. So I jumped on it. I said, yes, I'm the US. I can do this. I have a dream. I'm going to make it. I hated that class. I hated it. And I didn't know you could drop. When I found out it was about, eventually, after a few classes, it was about literature. Literature on stories that had to do with detective work and so on, right? I had no idea. I was stunned. And I didn't know you could drop. I was panicking because of all these blind spots I still had, right? But I was a good, respectful, appreciating those before us, our legacy, our elders. So I stayed and I hated it. I'm going to give you a funny one. One of the authors we were studying was Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe. I thought, who the heck is Edgar Allan Poe? And I didn't understand his writing. I hated it. And the professor, young, wonderful professor, very young, loved Edgar Allan Poe. I was in trouble. So anyway, I gave you examples. Use an I. In our field, we use I a lot so that we don't breach confidentiality of someone else, right? So it's easier to navigate that. So I gave you 2 examples of that, but there's so many more. We could write books about it. And remember, within cross-cultural dissonance, we don't just have where you're from in terms of identity, ethnicity, race, which a lot of people key in onto. No, we have cultural dissonance within professions. So one can be, say, a surgeon, another can be a dentist, or another can be an engineer. And remember, there are different specialties within all that. There's cultural dissonance when one is speaking rapidly, say, with the different profession. Do you see that? Now, in a place where my children were born, such as the United States of America, it's a gigantic, young country, gigantic, almost like an experimental country, right? Wouldn't you say? Well, each state is almost like a country, 50 states, almost like a country. People don't quite digest that or realize that. And it's full of diverse types of people who actually come from originally different countries. We estimate more than 205 nations are represented in the US as the US people. Of course, we have to mention our beloved Native Americans, the first. So on that note, I'm going to pause here because it's just a trailer. If you're interested, I can share more with you. So blessings to you. And remember, Ubuntu is a good thing, particularly with this paradigm shift that we are all experiencing. Okay. Be well. Love to you.